Hey everybody, we're live here with the Meeple Silver Show, and it is, it's amazing how quickly time is flying. It is like the fourth week of January, and I can't believe it. I don't like it, but it's true. It's the fourth week of January, and we have a special guest with us here tonight. We have Kristen Mott. Welcome, Kristen. How are you?
Hello, I am excellent. How are you guys?
Doing great. Doing great. Happy Lunar New Year to anybody who celebrates out there. Hi to George who's watching. So, Kat, what are you up to today?
I've been looking at different ways of doing renovations and things for some of the plans that we've possibly got.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's and working a little bit on some BubbleNet file stuff.
right. And how far along is BubbleNet now then when you say working on
Um,
files?
we're just finalizing.
Oh, finalizing things. I see.
Yeah. We had a test run of the game printed and found that there were some errors with that.
Hmm.
And some things where there wasn't enough contrast and all those sorts of things, which is why you do test prints.
Yeah.
And now we've just been correcting those, and we've just finished testing the expansion. So just making sure that that was all the right size and everything. And now I've finally got the box size so I can get to work on the illustration for the expansion box, and then we can basically send it all away.
Awesome. And so you're printing and shipping the expansion at the same time that you're doing the main game?
Yes, we were able
Smart.
to raise enough to cover the expansion as well, because it's a mini expansion. It's not a full on. It allows you to play as the fish as well as playing as the whales.
Oh, okay. What are the fish trying to do?
The fish are trying to escape from the whales,
I mean, that makes sense, right?
so you get to play as other people's fish. So instead of it being
Oh,
basically
I see.
cards, you have a replacement for the deck of cards, which we're calling fish clocks, and the name has stuck, so we're actually going to call them fish clocks. And you get to set the little fish,
I
hands
see.
like on a clock,
Yeah.
where the fish are escaping, instead of it being on the cards where it's just printed the different
Right.
segments where they escape.
Which are just like random ish.
I
Right?
mean, not exactly random, but yes, it basically.
Well, when they come up, they come up.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they come
But
up
now it's a
random.
choice. Now, when
Yes.
is it like I'm sitting to your left, so I control your fish, and then Kristen's
Yes,
sitting to my left, so she controls my fish,
yes.
and she makes
And
my fish swim away from me.
and then the other way around, like, so you don't know what the fish are going to do. They
Right.
set
Yeah.
that, they put it down, you play your moves, and then you find out. And then the next turn you go the other direction, so you get to get them back,
Oh, I like
basically.
that. So it's kind of like a little cat and mouse, like getting in your head and trying to outthink each other. Very cool. Very cool.
And one of the other things you get to do that the cards don't do is you can set two fish onto the same direction, so that any fish in there will move
Right.
twice, so they'll escape.
Oh, so that's
Which
something that
is,
is impossible in the regular game, but is now
yes,
very, very possible in the expanded game. Love it.
yes.
Love it. And how about you, Kristen? What's up with you? You also have an aquatic themed game.
With amazing meeples.
Oh, the sharks? The
Yeah.
shark game? Oh, yes. I love the shark meeples in that game.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. At the time that I designed that one, all of my kids were sort of obsessed with sharks. And
As
so
they should be. Sharks are cool.
that's
They
where
haven't grown out of it, have they?
I mean, it's not as much. They're not as interested as they were.
Is Shark Week still a thing?
Sharks are still a thing.
But is Shark Week on TV like still a thing? I don't know anybody who still watches TV, right?
I
So
know.
like scheduled television. But Shark Week, when my kids were growing up, Shark Week used to be like a big deal, like
It's
all
also a
sharks all the
euphemism.
time.
Well, they've got all those different documentaries and stuff that you can watch on Disney Plus, I think.
Mhm.
We've watched a couple of those. Pretty good. But yeah, we don't watch TV either. It's not a thing
Not
anymore.
like pre-programmed anyways, right? It's like stream as I want. I am the boss of me.
That's right. Yeah.
So Kristen, what do you got going on right now?
Oh, lots of things. I mean, in my personal life, I have sick kids, so I'm
Oh,
dealing with
that's not
that
fun.
at the moment. But as far as game design, I have a lot of things that are sort of in the works, I guess. I mean, I'm working on a bunch of different projects. I recently started working with a few additional co-designers this year, which has been really great. Which has almost doubled the amount of stuff that I'm working on at the moment.
Mm. In a
So
good way? In a good way, though?
it's very good, and I love
Okay,
it.
cool.
It's
Oh, so you're someone who likes co-designing.
yes, I do. Like I'm
Okay.
learning that I really do like it. And it's a different experience with each co-designer.
Yeah.
A different process and just not necessarily a different relationship, but it's just a different process. And I don't know, it's fun. I really like that. The bouncing ideas off of each other and just like being able to meet. We meet once a week, sometimes twice a week, and then you just play and talk
Oh,
about
that's
stuff.
helpful. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very polarizing. Everyone that I've spoken to who's attempted co-designing either loves it or hates it. There don't seem to be any in-betweens.
I think
I
it's
don't know yet.
like, do you co-design with George, or is it usually one person's the designer and the other person's like developing it or something?
One of us always leads so far.
Mm.
Yeah.
So one of us is the designer, the other one's the dev generally, or one of us is lead on the design. But we've got partway through a co-design on one game that got quite a long way, and then I basically ended up taking lead on that, and then it's on the back burner anyway. So I don't know. I mean, that's very different though, right? Because we've already got an established relationship and we can like fight with each other and all those other things that married couples can do and either survive or not. Completely
Well,
differently.
some may say that Jay and I are married as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long-term relationship, right? Whereas
yeah.
the challenges with co-designing for a lot of people is that it's sometimes a brand new relationship and you don't know where you stand. And
I think those are not that they're the dangerous one. Not danger. Danger is the wrong word. I mean, I'm thinking about sharks now. But it's more they're a little fraught. You don't have the background relationship to kind of fall back on or understand. Like that's how that person works. And so sometimes, I mean, Kristen might just be like a really cool, easygoing person, and she's easy to get along with.
I mean,
I like to think so.
Yeah.
You can ask the
out of
co-designers,
a lot of the designers that I know, you would be one of the ones that I would think I could try doing that with. I still don't know if I mean it's my personality that would be the problem, honestly. Like it's my style. I'm
But
the one
that's the other thing, right?
I just
is knowing yourself too, right?
Yeah.
In a co-design situation, like how am I going to work in a co-design situation, and if my co-design partner can put up with that, we're golden. If they can't, we're not. And like honestly, I talk about this a lot in therapy, but I'm not here to change anybody's personality at all, ever, right? It's like you might want to address your behaviors around other people differently, but if you don't want to, then that's not going to make for a good partnership. And this is kind of why typically it's like I only co-design with people I am friends with, or have like it's not even just the vibe. It's like we talk a lot first, and we're we helped each other out on something. It's like, hey, would you like to work on something together? Because we click, right? It's not just I'm looking for a co-designer. First person puts their hand up, you're in. Like, and I don't think you're like that either, Kristen. But I'm saying like there tends to be
there are people who do that though.
I know, and I think that's
no.
that's fraught. Like I said, it's like
Creation's
that
a
is
bit
like something that could lead down cool roads or not cool roads. I mean, set yourself up for success if you're looking for a co-designer. And I talked about this on Blue Sky one day. It's like important to know like the communication style of your co-designer, and which got us into a big talk about like Myers-Briggs and like enneagrams and things like that, which is not scientifically rigorous or valid, but interesting. And here's the thing, right? If a person actually believes that they follow their enneagram or their Myers-Briggs index thing, then that's fine. Then they do believe that, and then you understand probably, at a good degree, how they communicate or how they think, if they believe that truly to be them. Whether it's scientifically valid is totally irrelevant at that point, if they believe it. So yeah, I do lots of not. I don't like test people to see if they'll be a good co-designer. That'd be hilarious. You have to
Pass or
write
not?
this like
Yeah.
you have to pass this battery of psychological exams before you can co-design with me. No, but you get a good read on people based on interaction, and it's a long-term interaction, like you said, Kat, relationship. So one thing I found that was really funny this week, I was thinking about it, it's like, I designed very different games with each of the people that I co-design with on a regular basis, right? So like Erica and I have really only worked on one game together, so I don't really know, but we work on tons of other projects together, so I know how she works. Alara and I make like the games that have like lots of moving parts and things like that. David and I work mostly on co-op games that have like a neat physical mechanical hook. And Jay and I are usually making like games that are, well, we make the most games together, so that's a little bit weird, but a lot of them tend to be puzzles first and foremost. Like the mechanic is like, solve this cool mechanical puzzle, and then you're going to win the game if you do that the best or the most or whatever. Whereas Alara and I are like straight up head-to-head combat and things like that. Nick and I do other games, so we're more like sort of in like, I don't know, there's something cinematic about what we do together. So yeah, it's just different expressions of what I like about games. I tend to design differently with different people because of their likes and how they like to design. I think I'm a little more malleable than they are. Not that they're inflexible, but I'm really flexible. I think that's what it is. It's like, I just want to be along for the ride. This is fun. And I like a lot of different styles of things, whereas some people are like just very set on, I want to do this. It's like, cool, let's do that then. I'm going to help you do that.
Yeah, I think
that's what it is.
That's true. And I'm a little bit like that in the sense that I don't want to say like I'm along for the ride, but it has opened up different, like designing around different mechanisms that I wouldn't naturally gravitate to.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
And so I have really enjoyed that. It's sort of
You're down for whatever. That's
and I feel
down
like
for whatever.
I know how I operate personally, and my personality is I want to get stuff done. Like I want to make the prototype. If it doesn't work, then I'm going to fix it and we'll make it again, and just like get things done down the line until something happens. But I also feel like I can match energy pretty well too. It's like, well, if you want to, take your time, that's cool too. I like kind of seeing how other people work and how they function, and then trying to work together to get it done. So yeah.
I get it. I think again, like similar to you, but opposite. Like I'm the guy who thinks about it a lot and like mulls it over in my head, and like I need a day to think about it. And a lot of the other people I co-design with are more like, I'm just gonna make it. And I think that's actually a good combination, right?
Yeah.
Where there's somebody who's gonna say, wait, I've thought about it a little bit more. Don't make that quite yet because the math might work this way.
Yeah.
But also somebody who makes it just so I don't sit and think about it for like 15 million days. That's not a number, but it could be. So yeah, I think, picking a good partner is like any other relationship or any other partnership. You gotta kind of walk into it with eyes open and be willing to ask some questions and get to know somebody. It's not just about their design chops. I think a lot of it is about communication style as well.
Oh yeah.
So talking about getting to know someone, we're 15 minutes into the show and we have not actually yet asked you for your origin story.
Yeah, because I talked to Kristen all the time.
Maybe we should do that.
Okay. Sure.
How did this
How'd you
happen?
get into this?
My origin story. Well, so it originally started with me just really designing games for my kids. So I homeschool my kids. I have 3 kids, and we discovered games, a while ago, and all the games that we had for kids, I would play them with my kids, and I felt like, I bet I could make something better than this if I tried really hard. I mean, we had all of the basic games, and so I just tried. I was like, I'm just going to make some games for my kids. ones especially that I wanted to interest my middle daughter, because I just felt like there wasn't anything out there that would really hold her interest. And so I tried to do that, and it just sort of snowballed from there. Like I took some of those early designs to Jordan Goddard, because he lives, not very far from me, and so he and Mandy helped me they sort of helped put me on the path to how to think about my games and how to sort of develop them a little bit. Because at the time I was designing like preschool games, for my kids, and just they sort of helped me develop how to think about game design, even with those smaller projects. And, then my husband and I started playing games together, and I was seeing how mechanisms were working together. And I was like, this is amazing. I have to try this now. And so it just kept going and snowballed. And now I can't stop.
That's also a game.
Yeah. It just keeps going. So that's sort of my origin story in a nutshell, is just making games for my kids. And then it turned into something else. And so they still get to see
like
me.
it. Other kids might like it, right?
Yeah, sure. My kids
Designing
like
for
to
an
play
audience.
test and things still. So yeah.
You know exactly who your audience is. You've got an idea in your head of what they actually want. I mean, that's a great starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been interesting
Test
too,
if it's
seeing
true.
them, because so when we started playing games, I mean, my son was not even kindergarten yet, and now he's fifth grade, and so it's been interesting to sort of see him develop too as a gamer kid from the games that we were playing, and now he can play whatever with me, and that's great. He doesn't always want to play test things anymore that don't look like games, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. He'll come back around. It's
Yeah.
interesting, right? That whole game literacy is a thing, right? Because I'm
Mm.
sure if you had some of his friends over, they'd be lost in a
Yeah.
game that he can play fluently, right? So
Mhm.
game literacy is a huge component that we tend to forget as designers about, actually, that
Oh, yeah.
people aren't born knowing how to play games. People are born wanting to play games, I think. Games are something that's intrinsic in value and across cultures. But I don't think everybody knows how to play a game, or how to even shuffle cards or roll dice or
Sure.
draft, or
Yeah.
any of the things that we do on a regular basis, and we just say it like it's something that everybody should know. You should know what a meld is. What's a meld? You should know, but a
Yeah,
lot
that
of people
jargon.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that jargon. Yeah. So, in terms of your origin story, how do horses fit into your origin story?
How do horses fit in?
Yeah.
Well, so in a previous life, I rode horses. I worked at a barn. I managed a barn. We did competitions, and I taught riding lessons and all these things.
Mhm.
Um, and so for 20 years, that was my life. And when I met my husband and we got married, and that, kind of stopped, I couldn't afford to do it anymore. um,
Yeah.
and um, so, I mean, I still love it. Like, it's still a part of my life, but I don't do it anymore.
I had
So,
thought about you yesterday. My colleague is also a horse girl. That's what she calls herself, a horse girl,
uh-huh.
right? So, and she saw this meme, and I was thinking about you when she told me about it. That, well, she told me that, and this connects to Cat in some way, amazingly, that in the Lord of the Rings, because New Zealand, Lord of the Rings. Sorry, Cat. That all of the riders of Rohirrim were actually women
Really?
dressed up as men, because they looked for horseback riders in New Zealand to be the extras, and they could only find women because that's who rides horses as adults,
Yeah.
apparently. Anyways, it was this interesting thing that she was telling me. And so she's like, yeah, when poop hits the fan, it's not going to be these macho guys riding to save you. It'll be, girls with pink helmets riding to save you because that's who rides horses nowadays, right? So, anyways, just
That's right.
just a thing. I did want to ask you about that
You knew that
because
I used to ride. I was like, how did you know?
oh no, I didn't know that. That's cool. No, I was just thinking about New Zealand and Lord of the Rings. I tell you that I have a game over here that I worked on, did the dev work for, called Fantasy Ranch. Did I ever tell
Yes,
you about it?
you have told me about that before.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because I think if you're looking for an audience, there's a very underserved audience who would like a game, I think, about horses.
I think so
It's a good
too.
horse
Right?
game. 'Cause most of the horse games are really lame, like naff, like, ugh.
Oh,
And there's so
yeah.
much about horse stuff that's actually really interesting.
And
there's so
cool
much
and like procedural and
skill.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would
I
love
mean,
to design a just a big game about horses. It's like I know the most about that. That
right. And you
subject.
still haven't done anything about it. So do it.
And
Do it. Do
so
it.
I have a card game that I'm working on and showing around about horses, but it's not about. I mean, it's a very light card game. It's not about training and showing and all of that. However, at one point I did design a bigger game. I started it on my own, and I all about horse shows and what you needed
Oh, cool,
to do
cool, cool.
there, and then you would show, and a little bit of a worker placement game. And I showed it to Adrian a couple of years ago, and we started working on that one. We showed it around a little bit, but nobody was interested in a horse theme.
I
So we
don't think they have
changing it.
people friends in the horse world though. That's that. Well, see,
I mean,
that's the thing. So
is
I
this
think
hoof
there's like
span?
untapped audiences, man. I think there's all sorts of cool untapped audiences.
I think so. And like, I think a game about horses, you would get gamer dads to play those with their preteen, teenage girls. Like, of course. They would love
Hoof
that.
span.
Horse fan.
Well,
I would do
I mean,
that. If they
I
wanted,
mean,
I would do it.
talk to Jamie, right?
Love
I
to.
mean, no, but
Um,
really, like, I said it, but I think you guys pronounce hoof differently, so you didn't get what I said. But
Oh.
hoof span,
Oh yeah.
you say hoof, don't you?
yeah.
I
Yeah,
get
that's why.
that.
Yeah,
For
but
Indiana.
there's that whole, and they've gone well beyond it having anything to do with span now, and they're just going.
it's
I think,
true.
I mean, I remember saying something like 3 years ago they should do one about fish. I wish they would do one about fish, and then it came out, and I
Yep.
was like, yes. And I think I was talking to the designer about it, and there was sort of this conversation where I'm like, you want to tell me something, don't you? So yeah. Here we go. So I mean, seriously though, like, there's people who don't know anything about horses don't actually understand how much there is involved in the process and how interesting it is. I mean,
It
we had
really
to learn
is.
dressage, like the theory of dressage. It was like, in Belgium you do these summer courses that are like a week,
Mhm.
and they send you off somewhere, and you come back home generally each night, but it's a little bit like a sort of summer camp type of thing, but you learn a specific skill. So mine was, I learned about horse stuff, but you didn't just get to muck around and like play with horses. This was full on like horse school. So,
Yeah.
we learned to clean out the, like, mucking out the stables. We learned how to clean their hooves. We learned how to feed them. We learned how to curry them, all of that kind of stuff. We learned how to care for the tack. We learned dressage, all of these things. It was hardcore. And we learned how to ride properly, and we learned like the basics of balancing on horses, like standing on their backs, and like all this other stuff. There was heaps. There was one little week, I think.
Yeah.
And there's just so much in that, like just in that little memory that I have, let alone actually knowing what you know.
Well, there's so many. I feel like if you're going to make a game about it, there's so many angles that you could take. There's so
Yeah.
many different disciplines. There's so much care. There's so much just training and skill building, and like, you could do so much with it. Building up your
And it
bond
doesn't have to
and
be the like, I'm gonna say classically girly stuff that people
Oh.
get put off by.
Mhm.
You know, when they're like, "Oh, horse girls." But it's actually the reason that horse girls are into horses is not because it's girly, it's hard work, it's dirty,
It
you
is.
come home stinking of horse and covered in hay, and you've fallen, and you had to get up, and you're bruised, and you're grumpy, and you've done all these things, and your body is so strong
Oh,
because you don't just lie on a horse, like, you're not just sort of like, blah, 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 blah. There's so much.
yeah, don't try to tell me that it's not a sport. I mean,
It is so much of
Yeah.
a sport.
Yeah.
There's so much strength involved, even just in a simple rising trot. I couldn't do that anymore.
Oh man, I used to be so like fit, and I could like I would ride when I was working. I could ride like 10 horses a day because I was I was an exercise person. Like that's what I
Oh,
did.
wow. So
And
you were taking them out and exit. Oh man, that's a lot.
along with other, I teaching lessons and then caring for those horses that I rode. It's so I had to do all that, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I don't know that I could do that type of physical work now. I'd have to build
It's
up to it, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. It has such a special place in my heart, and I would love to do it again someday.
Okay, well, I'm expecting hoof spam. So, I mean, just
Yeah,
let's get
that
it,
would be a dream come true for me too.
do the
Right?
thing. Just build it. Just build it. And I mean, you've got what, like 10 games out now or something? They'll definitely be into it.
Yeah.
How many games have you got out now? Because it's all just suddenly happened in this big flurry, hasn't it?
Sort of. Yeah, so I had Dinosaur Exhibit that I did myself back in 2022, and then Sharks. I did have one of those really early preschool games that I was telling you about. I did sign that one with a small publisher. And
what's it
then
called?
that one is called Clownfish Cove. It's a preschool cooperative game. Let's see, Insectarium. That's
That's right. That was one that was just on Kickstarter.
Yeah, just on Kickstarter. It should be coming out at sometime late spring.
Cool.
Spring. And the game with Matthew with Envyborn, the Prowl. And then Adrian and I have a game signed with another company. Actually, it was the game that was the horse game that we couldn't get anybody to look at, and we changed.
Which Adrian?
I'm sorry,
Adamescu.
Adrian Adamescu.
Oh, it is Adamescu. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
just making
Sagrada.
sure. There
Sorry.
one.
And that's the game. Is that the game about? Was it dragons that it changed into? Yeah. Okay.
Dragons now.
Yeah, you showed it to me. That's cool. Excellent. While we're talking, let's actually just pull up the screen for this bad boy here. Ba-doom. So this is the campaign that will be launching at some point soon. I don't know when, but you can get notified. Look up the Dragon Roost, Prowl, Space Potato. Space Potato is probably the most memorable of the titles. I can't lie. That's by Ammon Anderson of Gnome Hollow fame. Dragon Roost is by Henry Audubon of Parks fame and Chris Kingsnorth. And then Prowl. Prowl is by our special guest, Kristen. Can you tell us a little bit about Prowl?
Sure. So it is a tiny box game. It's a little area control game all about tigers marking their territories. So essentially they are peeing on things to mark their territory, which
it's what they do.
Like hearing about that. That's kind of a unique theme. But yeah, it's a very small area control game, and I'm really proud of that design because I really liked the constraints of the small box. So it's a 4x4x1 box. And so there's cards and cubes and a couple of meeples, and that's it. So
I really love small box games at the moment. I'm mildly obsessed with them. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I think it's definitely a fashion at the moment, but I'm really, really I don't want to play big box games at all. I want to play 10 small box games right now in a row. That's what I want.
I feel that way too. I would much rather play an evening full of half-hour, 45-minute games than to sit down and, this sprawling. And those games are usually wonderful. But I would rather just play a bunch of little games. That sort of suits me more. My brain like going from thing to thing instead of focusing on one giant game that I'm probably going to lose.
I think there's something about those small games that are just kind of like big, like dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit, and they make you happy. So I get it. I'm sort of in between the middle. Like I like some little games. I like a big game to kind of like more like a meal planning, right? So like an appetizer, a salad, a big game as your entree, and then you have a dessert or two.
Yeah.
And then you're into like party game hour because you're tired and your brain doesn't work right.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I kind of like this arc
anything.
of games.
I'm happy playing all kinds of games. I like the arc idea, and I try and do that sometimes. But at the moment, right now, my thing is definitely like, and I say right now, but like, when did we have that power cut? That was, I think, a year ago. Sorry, power.
Ever since that power outage happened,
we had no power, and we ended up playing games by candlelight downstairs in the games room, which is the only room that has a fireplace, and which was the only room we could heat because it was very, very cold. And so we were down there by the fireplace, and I was like, well, let's just start opening some of these games we haven't opened. And we ended up playing, I think, 14 new games or something like that.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right? We just kept opening tiny games and playing them and just being like, is the power back? No. Okay, let's try another game.
Yeah.
And since that experience, like that has made me think I just really enjoy that pattern. I grew up playing all different kinds of games, but some of my favorite memories are playing the same card game over and over and over. And it's that sort of vibe. Like, I know how to do this. I'm just going to do it again. And these little games are so easy to learn. But it was
there's definitely something about that too, right? That the comfort in doing something again is cozier than the anxiety and stress of having to learn a new skill or a new game all the time. I get that. Also, I think there's something kind of just even chill about spending a small amount of time doing something twice instead of doing one game that's slightly longer that is just not as satisfying. Sometimes getting that satisfying end a few times is better than having a longer game. That's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Daniel is saying this. He says, I end up buying more small games because I think I'll get them to the table easier.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Sasha, who's just said hi, is part of the reason that I've actually started really looking at small games, partly because Sasha last year did a game January where he did a game jam every single day for the whole of January. Then he did it again this year. And I've ended up playtesting a bunch of his little games that came out of that. Plus, one of his things is he's always got several small games in his bag. And whenever we stop anywhere, or if we've ordered food and it's not here yet or whatever, he pulls a game out. And so there's always a small game happening whenever Sasha is around.
Yeah.
And so
I like small games a lot too for that.
Yeah. And I really like that too. I really like that sort of, well, I could sit here and do something boring on my phone, or I could play a small game with my friends.
Yeah, there's something to be said about taking off that afternoon into the evening and maybe even later to finish like that big giant TI4 game or something. So we do that once a year for my friend's birthday, and then we never look at it again. And the problem with that is that like literally every time we pick it up, it's like I gotta kind of relearn the rules a little bit. So I don't love that about it, but we always send like each other like, watch it played before you come. We try to, or at least on some level of understanding before we sit down at the table again. But no, I get that. So speaking of playing card games over and over and over again, Kristen, you were saying that card design is somehow like your nemesis.
I feel like it has been. I have struggled so much in my prototyping with that. I don't feel like I have a really good eye for what looks good. Layout, graphics.
Oh, okay. So it's that part of it, you think?
Early prototype. Why does it bother you?
And so when I make a prototype, it looks you can tell what things are, but it doesn't look great. It's
Mhm.
stars are
Okay.
always my points. We've got a little text box for something and something else somewhere that may or may not belong there. Um, and so generally what happens with me is once I start playtesting it and putting it in front of other people, they're like, what is this? What does this go here? Like, and they'll make comments.
Okay.
I will start to understand, okay, well, maybe this needs to go here, or this icon needs to be a part of this box instead of this box, things like that. It's, yeah, it's just the layout. When I do it on my own, it makes sense to me. Oh, this should go here. This is the points. It's the most important thing. But maybe it's not. Maybe it just needs to be over here. And so as I was telling you guys before, you had someone on, maybe it was a few months ago now, talking about graphic design and card layout. And it helped me so much because just the idea, he mentioned the L when you're looking at a card,
Yeah.
having that L on the left side and then down across the bottom being sort
Yeah.
of most important space, most important real estate on your card. And so the most important thing should go there. Other things can go other places, especially when they're splayed in a right-handed splay. And so I don't know, I took that to heart, and the last,
Has it worked for you?
yeah, it's been really helpful. It's, you know,
Yeah.
things are going in different places. I'm using banner backgrounds now more to sort of separate things, and very simple things.
Sure.
I
I
feel
think that's
like
okay.
I'm
I
so
think
bad at it.
simple is actually good, right? So visual communication isn't always intuitive.
Hi,
It should
Matt.
be, but it's not. Oh, you did.
I see Matt's
Yeah. So I think we said the magic words, and Matt Paquette showed up. Graphic
Mhm. He's been
design,
summoned.
card layout.
graphic design and how terrible I am at it.
Well, I
No,
mean, you
the
could
reason I
ask
was
Matt for
asking,
a master class or something, I
Yeah.
guess.
but I mean that really is like you say you're really bad at card design and things like that. But the reason that I'm asking why do you think that? Why do you feel that way? Is it's often not actually that you're bad at card design per se. It might be that you're not experienced at identifying which of the things you need to put in particular places, or you get a lot of feedback during playtesting that tells you things that you're not used to accounting for in your early prototypes. Or do you see what I mean? And
Right.
so
Or that
if
you don't need to know the information about because you already know it, and players
Yeah.
who don't know the game need it. Maybe that's part of
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah, I
So,
think
like,
it's figuring
what
out
is it that you
right, what information is the most important thing that the players need to see on the card, and where should that go versus, like, early on I tend to just put things at the top and I put things at the bottom, and like that's it. And so I sort of don't utilize the space um well, I guess, in the way that
Mhm.
But that kind of is the point of playtesting. Like, I
Mhm.
suppose what I do with early prototypes is I just chuck stuff on the card, and
Yeah.
I look for exactly that. I look for what do I think is important, and do my players agree? That's all
Yeah.
I'm looking for. And so I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not bad at card design. I'm just putting things out there where I think they make sense, and then testing if I'm right.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
might be, if you think about it that way, that might be easier.
Than saying that you're horrible. 'Cause you're not
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
So Matt brings up a really good point about hierarchy of information, and then Kat's
Yeah.
point is really about fidelity, right? It's like, is how I picture it how you picture it, and does that match? And
Mhm.
does it also match the game conditions or the game state? And do I have access to the information that I need to make good decisions at the time when I need to make good decisions? Like that is actually
Right.
critical for usage, right? So we're talking more of the UI UX side of it now,
Mhm.
which is not just the legibility and readability and that kind of stuff, but it's because there's more to a card in terms of graphic design than just information uptake, right? There's also that usability part,
Yeah.
and the timing of it actually matters. So when Matt's talking about hierarchy of information, we're talking about, normal reading patterns follow the F pattern, or in cards it might be more like an L, depending, right,
Mhm.
on splay. But a lot of the stuff that we talk about in basic graphic design is for print media. which doesn't translate one-to-one to games because of usability and how print media is read page by page, as opposed to cards, which are held in a hand and you need access to almost all of them at all the times. And if you aren't going to use one, like let's say we're playing Magic the Gathering and you don't have the mana, sorry, Cat, to cast one of the cards, you're going to put it at the back and you're never going to look at it until you have the requisite amount of energy to do so, right? And so because you have the ability to shift things in your hands, usability is actually super, super important in how you think about your card layout. So yeah, a lot of the comments that you're saying, that makes a lot of sense, is because it comes more from the usefulness of it than just a single card in isolation, right? It's in the environment, in vivo, in the life of the game. So yeah, putting it in front of playtesters will show you the way. Like 9 times out of 10, if you have a question of does A go here or B go here, I don't know, just put it on a card. Let your kids tell you. Like, right? Like, Mommy, I don't know what to do with this card. Oh, why not? Because I don't know how much it costs. Oh, that's over there. Well, why'd you put it over there, Mom? They'll probably tell you that, like, straight up.
Oh yeah, there's no filter when it comes to stuff like that in my house.
Are you familiar with the concept of A/B testing? So what the way that works is you basically put option A and option B into the field. It's called A/B testing. It's one of the ways that you can also have champion and challenger testing. It's a marketing concept, but it's also used in a lot of other fields.
Sure.
And the way that I do with a lot of my prototypes is I will put something in, like I'll put it in different places on different cards and see how people are coping with it. So I'll put the price here and then I'll put the price here and just pay attention.
Yeah. Okay.
And for example, with BubbleNet, we had 2 different colorways in the cards and 4 different layouts. And we just shuffled them all into the same deck and we watched.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because some of them are going to get instant reactions that are like, I can't use this card.
Whenever I saw people squinting, I was like, okay, which is the one they're having trouble reading, which is the one that doesn't have the right amount of contrast, all that kind of stuff. So
did you find that doing that, like mixing all the cards together, confused people, like confused your playtesters to where they were like, well, I don't know what is what anymore?
No, almost no one even noticed. 1 or 2 people were like, why are they different colored cards? And I was like, because we're seeing which color people like.
Yeah.
And a couple of people were like, oh, I noticed that there's one of these on these cards, but not on these ones. And I'm like, yeah. What do you think? And they're like, oh, I like this because it helps me figure out which way is the top of the card. And I'm like, good, cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So Matt added a comment here. Sorry, go ahead, Kat.
Oh, that was it. That's A/B testing. Is basically
A/B testing is great.
Tell people.
Yeah, you just see them use it and see which ones cause, like, what causes friction and what is smooth. That's all you're really looking for, and you move towards the smoothness most of the time. So Matt is saying, Matt's saying that he thinks about games like a bunch of interconnected infographics, that the need to communicate small bits of information quickly is key. Right. So if I want to know where something is, my eye follows a path. And if I can reliably find all the information that I need to make a decision at a key point in a certain location, that is good graphic design, typically, right? So you keep the cost of cards always in the same place if that is important information.
Yeah.
No matter what the class of card is, like monsters versus equipment versus whatever we're doing, dragons and armor and weapons, but the cost will always be the same, using color or a different card frame to denote what kind of class of card it is. Weapons are always in red and armor is always in gold and dragons are always in green, but the cost is the same in the same location, so I can make decisions quickly by looking to the place that my eye first goes. That kind of thing. Yeah. George is saying something. Yeah, keep going.
It's really useful too.
Yeah. Oh, there's also a difference. Yes, this is a big point too. Some cards spend a lot of their time in play, so they're almost like a tile, versus in your hand and shifting around in your hand.
Mhm.
So cards that can be played in various orientations and have to be read from across the table even by
Oh,
other
yeah.
players are very different than cards that only I have access to, right?
Mhm.
Cards where you are passing them around, or cards where if it's a speed game and you have to decide really quickly, your information needs to be like small bits, like 1 bit, 2 bits of information to make a decision, right? So sometimes how the game is played dictates what you put on cards and where you put it. So yeah, there's a lot to think about with cards. Yeah,
Like
especially
if they're
George is
being
bringing up the
drafted at the
usage.
start. One of the things that really annoys me is when I'm playing a card game, or a game with cards in it, rather, and one of the first things I have to do, or the first thing I have to do, is draft. So I don't know anything about the game, but I have to set up my entire game by basically pick and passing, and looking at these cards and going, I don't know how to tell if this is good or bad. I
Yeah.
don't know how to tell if I'm going to want this or not. How do I make this decision? And if the card doesn't communicate that to me in a way that I can use without knowing how to play the game yet,
Mhm.
Yeah, you're going to have a very poor, or potentially a very poor first experience, right?
Yeah.
And that's,
Oh,
and a
yeah.
lot of people, if they have a poor experience with the first game, unless they are a very kind of curious type of player, they won't give it a second chance because there's 1,000 more games to play on the shelf that
Yeah.
that will likely work better than the one that just kind of gave you a poopy experience, right?
Yeah.
yeah. So
You know
Matt
what that
is
poopy
basically
experience?
reinforcing the how. And when I'm designing cards, I think about them as a tool to do something. So what is the card for? Why have I used a card?
Mhm.
Yeah,
What's it
specifically a
for?
card,
Yes.
right?
The
Yes.
purpose, yeah.
Why is this a card and what's it for? What do I want people to think about? Why do I want them to use a card for this? Why
Yeah.
can't I do this with something else?
Mhm.
How much do I need to communicate on
Cards are
here?
cheap.
Yeah, I know. But other, like in terms of the actual
Yeah, for sure.
design, why is it a card? And
Yeah.
then what shape should it be? What else should be on here? How long am I looking at it for? Where am I looking at it from? How much do I need to be able to consume? What kind of player am I? Can I cope with 15 different symbols on here? Or
I
is this
know.
going to overwhelm me?
Too many.
Well, I mean, I find more than 2 or 3 symbols on a card just makes me go, nah, I'm done. Whereas people like George, who grew up playing Magic the Gathering, are like, of course, there are 250 symbols for me to learn in this game.
Yeah.
This is fun. And I'm like, no.
Well, you know what? There
Peanut
actually
butter.
aren't in Magic that many symbols. It's more keywords, but yeah, I
Oh,
get it.
those sorts of games, those
Yeah, yeah,
games where you've got
they're like
thousands of
overload of like
bits of,
information, visual information that you actually, at a point, that's not speeding it up. Like visual information is supposed to speed up uptake, but sometimes when you have too much visual information, it's clutter, it's background noise, and it's like too much. One thing I really like about cards is that I tend to use cards in this way. I tend to break rules with cards because I have enough space to explain how the rule is broken. I don't want you to memorize like when there's exceptions in a game. I don't like exception-based games, except if I have cards, because then I can put the exception right on the card and
Yeah.
you can look it up and you can read about it. There's a errata in the back of the rules about each card. It's right on the card. I can probably draw a little diagram of how it actually plays out, right? So I like cards when they're done that way. And in that case, I wouldn't make it something that the other player has to see or read or know, because they're never going to read that little bit of text from across the table. I also like using cards when there needs to be a state change, right? That flipping it over or turning it or twisting it, or I think we can use the word tap, and Wizards of the Coast isn't going to come sue me. Those are really interesting ways to use cards. I like cards because you can stand them up and then they become a shield for things. I like cards because they have so much flexibility in play. I like cards because the deck remembers, doesn't really, but it does remember what comes in and out of the deck, right? So that a die roll doesn't know that it rolled a 6 last turn, but a card deck knows that if an ace of spades came out of the deck, there are no more ace of spades in this deck. Right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I know that, being a savvy card player, that if I can count the cards, I know my percentage chance of getting an ace of spades is 0 now because it's gone, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to say about card use, but then you have to design it for graphically and layout wise for the use. But a lot of that can be really actually pretty simple, right?
Matt has actually made a good point. He has a deck of cards that is
Yes,
specifically designed to help you with design.
I would show it on
It's
camera,
great
Matt, but it's like
tool.
underneath a bunch of stuff over there. Not because
It's
I don't use it,
so,
because I shoved everything over there yet a couple days ago.
but definitely like that's a really useful tool, especially if it's not something that you're accustomed to thinking about and it's bothering you in your design process. Like I generally don't get too hung up in the first stage of putting together a prototype, but when I'm actually making my proper so when I'm sort of going, oh yeah, what's going to go here, what's going to go there, I do that in a spreadsheet. But when I'm doing my layout, once I've done my spreadsheet and I know all of the data that's going to go onto that card, yeah, I get super stuck. I spend ages fiddling around with it. It's way too much. I spend way too much time fiddling around with my very first, never even been printed or played prototype.
Yeah.
And this kind of tool really helps because it helps you sort of go, okay, no, actually, let's just get rid of all that other noise. What am I trying to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And so Matt is saying that UX deck is available on the Deckable app. I don't know what that is, Matt. What's the Deckable app? Tell us about it in the chat. We'll put that up there. And it has lots of great tools for layouts of cards and boards and things like that. So yeah. Sorry, Kristen, you were saying something.
super use. No, I was just saying I will definitely look at that because I think it would be super helpful for me in trying to just figure this out on my own.
It's so
what are the
funny.
things that you get stuck on? Because I think that's what will be useful because everyone gets stuck, and us telling people, oh, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah.
What do you get stuck on? I think will help.
I mean, I don't know how to specify it more. I think it's just general layout and ease of use. I mean, I want it to be easy for my playtesters to understand the information and know, like, okay, this is what needs to be here. I know what this is. This is the point value. This is the cost. This is this. And I think I've played around a lot with trying to move things in different places. And I do consider how the card is going to be used in the game. Are you just taking cards and then playing them immediately, or are you holding them in your hand? Are you using them later? As things like that. And so actually this conversation has made me feel a little better about how
Wait a minute, I am awesome.
This,
I mean, the thing that's likely to happen, right, is when you go to playtest, you'll prototype the first time with other people, particularly if you've playtested it like in-house with people who understood the game and who helped develop it and things, and then you put it in front of someone who doesn't know any of it. They're going to be like, huh? And you're going to go, oh my God, I failed in every way.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do, right?
That's okay.
Someone goes, I'm not sure what this bit is. And you just think, oh, everything is devastatingly wrong, but it's not.
No.
And there's always going to be something that a different brain is going to see differently. You haven't done anything wrong. That's the whole point of testing. You're doing it right when you're testing it.
Yeah. And I mean, just in terms of feedback, especially about, well, not especially about graphic design, but there's definitely feedback that weighs more than others. And generally speaking, try to take like all feedback with not a grain of salt necessarily, but look for like propensity of data. Like, did 10 people tell you that's in the wrong place? Then it's probably in the wrong place. If one person says, I don't like that being there, but nobody else said anything about that, it doesn't mean don't listen to it, but it means like keep your eye open for that. Or ask people about that maybe next time. And if they say, oh, yeah, it didn't bother me much, but if it could be over here, it'd be even better, right? Because sometimes people are reticent to tell you to change something if it's just like a little itty-bitty change. But you can tell them, you can open yourself up to that criticism in a constructive way by saying, no, tell me where you'd rather have that, if that's not precisely where you'd want it.
And that in itself is a really great skill set to develop, like knowing if this is valid constructive feedback, or if it's like just they're having a bad day and they're mad about something, like, oh, I hate this part of your card. Okay, well, fine.
The way that you can manage that is, and so this is my business analysis hat on, because my other job is being a business analyst, and the idea there is actually to find out what the problem is. And people they don't know what their problem is. They want to tell you the solution. So the way to get around that is to ask questions. So
always ask
openly
questions.
ask questions, not be like, where would you put it instead? Say, oh, why does it bother you there?
Yeah.
That will get you a different and generally much more helpful result. Because if someone goes, oh, I really don't like this in the top left-hand corner, and you say, oh, where do you think it should be? They say the top right-hand corner, and you're like, okay, well, that's weird anyway. But if you say, why do you think it should be there? I'm left-handed. Oh,
yeah. Asking for the rationale is really an important skill when you're gathering feedback. Like, why are you saying what you're saying? I'm going to value what you're saying, but it'd be even more valuable if you tell me why.
Yeah.
Why would you like it moved in that position?
That was valuable feedback, not feedback, advice that I got early on when I started designing, was always ask what the problem is. If somebody tells you, well, you need to change this, always ask about the problem. Don't ask, like you said, Kat, how would you change this? What would you do differently? Like, what's the problem? It's my job as a designer to fix that problem, but I need you to tell me how you're experiencing that problem so I can fix it.
It's not even necessarily their job to identify the problem. It's yours. Your job is to ask them what's wrong. It's not the problem. It's what's wrong. So I really hate this being in the top left-hand corner. Oh, why does that bother you? Oh, it just feels really weird. I don't like it. Oh, okay. So show me how you're holding it when it's feeling weird. So I've got it here like this. Oh, wow. You hold your cards really differently from the way that I do. I wonder why that is. Oh, I'm left-handed. So sometimes people can just tell you, and sometimes people can't identify it. And so asking the questions and leading them through it, like Matt says, a lot of good layout is just common sense, but you don't actually understand it until you've gone through it and you've understood why. And a lot of people have already done all this work for us. So all we have to do is plug it into that work they've done. But asking the questions in order to identify the problem, and always assuming that the people don't know the problem, and that you're there to help them identify what feels weird or what's uncomfortable or what they didn't enjoy, but don't expect people to know what the problem actually is, I think is a really good way of giving yourself space to analyze it.
It's like asking clarifying questions, right? You're just trying to hone in on something and clarify and have them do the clarification, not you. You're asking the questions, right? But through your questioning, you should hopefully get a little bit closer and closer and closer to the reason why they are expressing what they're expressing, which is how feedback should work. Cool. So card design, do you feel better about it now?
Yeah,
you said hey, I feel better about my own skills now, and now I've got even more stuff on card design. And I think card design is really like I was saying before Matt got here. You could have a master class on it, and you'd still find like really experienced graphic designers learning something, because cards can do so many things, and that's why they're so ubiquitous in games, because they are so very fun. No, Matt, that's not what I'm saying.
Yes, definitely, Matt. You should apologize for helping us.
You're Canadian, I get it. I'm also Canadian, and sorry that you're sorry. But no. I'm saying before you got here, I said it so you didn't hear me say that. That's all I'm saying. But you should do a masterclass on card design, Matt, because you're a master at it. Curve Cut says, when I watch a show, I always want to play my prototypes up. Perfect. I'm so happy that's happening. So you should go do that, or at least take a look at them, or look at them and see if you can make some changes, or ask yourself why things are in certain places, right? So I think the interesting thing as an educator myself, I never want my students to do something because I told them to do it. I want them to understand the reason why they're doing what they're doing. And I think the same about game design. Like, don't just do it because, Matt Cat said to do it and he's an expert. I mean, obviously do what Matt says, but understand why. I think understanding why will help you adapt that or apply that logic or that skill in a different milieu or with a different component or with the board or the rule book instead, and you'll get more value out of what Matt is teaching or telling you. And I'm just using that as an example. If you understand the whys behind it, right? And so a good instructor will give you the whys. They're not just telling you, do this, do that. Right, Matt?
Yeah.
Matt is
one
apparently
thing
still sorry. I don't know.
When I've got a lot of information that I need to communicate on a card and I'm not sure how to do it, one of the things I do, I've been forcing myself to do because I want to make it really, really pretty, is to do the opposite. So actually literally just take pieces of paper, like little note squares or whatever, write the things on there, just enough for a minimum prototype, and try and just see, do you have what you need and where does it need to be, and scribble on it and move it around and do that. And then you give yourself a little bit of freedom to just, they know it's not supposed to be fancy. They can tell you whatever they want and you can just be like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
Like giving yourself room to make the mistake because you're going in there planning.
Oh, 100%. That's a great point.
Yeah, and having to change it afterwards again. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, giving yourself permission, but also giving the testers the sense that change is possible, right? Both of those are communicated through having a rougher looking prototype. Once it gets super fancy, there's that sunk cost fallacy that I put all this money and effort into making this perfect. I'm not changing it. That might be not what you're saying or not what you're thinking, but it is kind of sometimes what really nice printed out, colored, all the art done prototype speaks to or says to some of the other people who might be playing it or looking at it, or even evaluating it for publication, right? So just be aware that the goal of a prototype is to communicate the intent of your game. That's kind of it, right? And if you can do that, it shouldn't matter if it is 100% arted up as fancy as you can do it. Now, there are very obvious benefits of having, really nice art and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be more of how you present the game at the beginning, where you are very clear and upfront that this is not final. I really like art. I'm an artist myself. I did it, and, don't worry, anything can be changed. I'm not stuck to this, because of how finished art communicates finished, right? So
right, and then your playtesters are potentially less likely to actually comment on the gameplay if there's something.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon that you'll see at like some of the playtesting conventions when somebody presents something that is like ready to go. It looks like it's ready to go. Like some of the rest of us will say, so if I give you feedback, what's the chance that it'll get implemented? Because if you're not going to implement it, why am I even here at your table?
Yeah.
Right? If you're ready to go to print and you just want me to play it to get, I don't know, numbers, I'm not sure what you're doing. I can spend my time better over at that table where that person is not ready to print yet and needs the help to change. If you're so set on it, what are you getting out of me being here? Right? So I do think there is some of that, where if you're not willing to or able to, because you're ready to press print and anything that changes would, extend your timeline too far down the road. There's events for that, and some of the playtesting ones may not be right for that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Oh yeah.
Thinking. Oh, that's a good question. Curve Cut asked, what about using deluxe component board from published games to fancy it up? I think that's fine. Just got to be transparent of where you got it and, say, yeah, these are borrowed, or people will probably even recognize it if it's a famous game, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to have a playable prototype that looks okay.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to be the be all and end all of your goal, right? Graphic design and clear communication is way more important than fancy art, in terms of selling a game to somebody else, whether that person is a potential customer in the future or a publisher that's going to publish a game. I think that, especially at the prototype stage, right? Obviously, if you're selling it for $1 right now at a booth, it has to look good. People buy with their eyes, but they also buy with their eyes in the prototype phase, and I do get that as well. So can you play test with something that's written in marker on scrap piece of paper? Of course you can.
Oh yeah.
Done it a bazillion times. Have I ever sold a game that was done on scrap piece of papers? Like maybe once or twice. It's happened because they were there and they were playing it and they liked it and they're like, okay, well, we really want that. Show it to us when you get the whole game done. That kind of stuff. And so, was it sold completely on the scratch, the paper napkin version? No, but the intent was communicated that way, right? So if you can clearly communicate your intent in any way, shape, or form, that's usually what is going to sell the game or have a really good chance of selling the game because you're communicating it well, right?
And you're talking about pitching,
about.
not playtesting as much there at that point, right?
No, and no, but both, right? The same thing with playtesting too, right? If you can clearly communicate your intent to the playtesters while through graphic design, you're going to get better feedback. You're not going to get feedback about the graphic design, first of all, as much. And the game is going to run smoother and clearer. There'll be less questions. So it is that is really the first and foremost thing that I work on in a game. Once the play loop is done, is like, how am I going to communicate this graphically? I like games where I know how to play it just by looking at it, right? So the other day, this is actually pretty fascinating. There's a game, I think Scott Eaton posted it. It was a game that he just like kind of put together. And he's like taking it to Protospiel. And it was a game that was, using triangular tiles to make a Christmas tree. And you just look at the picture and you go, oh, I get it. I know how to play that game just by looking at it, because in its simplicity, the graphic design was so approachable and so clean and clear. It's like, yeah, match the color of the lights, match the tinsel sides to place your tokens or place your tiles. You must connect by one light in the string of fairy lights, and it's like it teaches itself just by having really clean graphic design. And that's because that's at some level, some of us, that's all we can produce is very simple, clear graphic design.
Yeah.
The thing that a lot of people get confused about when they're thinking about the difference between graphic design in terms of usability and pretty prototypes is that you can have a well-designed piece of prototyping that is simply black text on a white background, but it's laid out in a way that allows people to use the game. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people get really stuck on, is they think it needs to be pretty, and they think that it needs to have, I don't know, that's why a lot of people seem to think that they need to put AI art into their prototypes or whatever. That's actually making
images.
It's giving people the false sense of the game, because it's not going to look like that when it's published, and it's getting in the way of the functionality of the game. I would highly recommend, instead of trying to find any kind of pictures to go in there, do it in black and white. Draw a stick figure to represent it. If they need to see a picture, just draw a stick figure there. It does not matter. But make sure that it is really clear and legible first, because until you understand all of that stuff, there's nowhere, you don't know what the art's going to need to be.
Yeah. So Matt says it the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Games need to have a great UX and mechanic foundation, even if it doesn't look great. If you do it the opposite, where it looks great, but it doesn't have a UX and mechanic foundation worth spit, that's a problem. Right?
Yeah.
And there are definitely games that have been kind of not necessarily sold, but kind of get some hype built up because it like looks good. It looks like a game that could be good. But if it doesn't mechanically play or communicate well, so nobody can play because they don't know how to, it doesn't matter how good it looks, really.
And obviously,
it doesn't
this is
function.
Different stages of development, right? So if you're doing your first 10 playtests of a game and it scribbles on cardboard, that's fine. If you're up to your 200th, probably it should not be that.
Yeah.
Probably it should be. You should be refining the final details and deciding how much space you need for art.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I would just push back that you don't necessarily need to do that if you're getting a publisher, right?
I mean, as in how much space there is left on your card.
Oh,
Understanding
sure,
how
that's
much
yeah.
space usage you need for your card. Because
Yeah.
early on, you're like, I don't even know what needs to be on here. And by the end of it, you know what should be on there. You know around about where it should be on the card. And if you're pitching it at that point, your publisher looking at it can go, great, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
This is the game. Or as a publisher myself, I'm thinking about that throughout.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did that help? Do you feel full of ideas? Are you ready to go out and design?
I do. I'm thinking about some of the card layouts that I have for certain prototypes. Like, okay, well, maybe that's not as bad as I thought it was, and this definitely needs to change. But
Right. And
Yeah.
hopefully the stuff you need to change isn't as big as you thought.
yeah,
Right. And hopefully some of the stuff that you did is like, oh, that's not too bad. Right. And remember that, you can communicate stuff in very many ways, like color, texture, size, location, repetition, pattern, tone. There's all sorts of different ways. Like there's at least 7 different ways that you can use graphic design, to communicate information. And it's definitely worth looking into. Like I was laughing while you guys were talking. It's like, I can take courses at my college for free. Like I just have to pay for textbooks, and like I could probably get a diploma in graphic design in like a year and a half or something if I really sat down and decided to actually spend the time to do it. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should go do that. Matt, should I go do that? Should I go? Then I can open like Sen and Cat Co. And then we can I can challenge you for the crown of king of graphic design. Anyway, before I go take another course, it is 12 past 10, and I'm going to turn into a pumpkin because I was up late last night, could not sleep, and had to get up early this morning. So I'm going to say goodbye. Kristen, it was super nice to see you again. Kristen and I have a yearly ritual of having a ludology interview on the floor of a convention, just chatting for like half an hour about where she's been, what she's been doing. So we might not have to do it this year because you've been here.
Sure.
But I think people are just kind of used to, like, there's always that Kristen person in the pros and cons. So maybe we'll do it anyway, despite the fact that
I'm happy to do it whenever.
This has not eliminated you from ludology. Let's be clear.
Nothing eliminates anybody from ludology. Yeah. And Kat, what are you up to in the near future? Just renovations and packing.
We're off to Gamma Expo soon.
Oh, right, that's it. Right.
Lost track of when that is. Oh, but this coming weekend we are at the locals only expo at Red Castle Games in Portland, with a bunch of other local game designers, sort of local Pacific Northwest, showing off games in progress, published games, those sorts of things. So
that's super nice.
Yeah, come check it out. Come say hi. You'll get to play BubbleNet if you want to.
Hey.
And a bunch of others. So I think we've got Tim Eisner's going to be there. Tessa Elise. Oh my goodness, who else? It's a bunch of people.
Estefania.
It was a few. Yeah, there are quite a few people coming.
Cool, that's great. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest is a hot spot of game design, for real. Matt said that he'll be at Gamma and he'll see you there. I will not be at Gamma. Kristen, will you be at Gamma?
No, I will not. I was going to go when it was scheduled in March, but then the dates got changed. So no, I can't go this year. I'm really sad about it too.
It's like almost mid-February. It's weird. It's very early.
There are so many other things on now that things have had to be shuffled and rescheduled in order to fit everything else in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
where are you going to be next then, Kristen?
I'm planning to go to a small convention, Tennessee Game Days in Nashville.
Oh, fun.
End of March, I think. But the next bigger convention, I'm going to go to Geekway to the west in May, and then Origins Gen Con. And I'm still undecided on PAX next year with the dates and things. So
Actually,
yeah, PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we'll see if I get there.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to be at a design retreat in, I think, South Carolina or North Carolina in May. And then Origins, we'll see about Gen Con. I have two classes to teach this semester, that semester. So I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but we'll see. And
it's
then
Expo and then Token Con and maybe Essen.
Yeah, I won't be at well, I might. I might have to go to Mexico for a convention in Mexico because they want to talk about the Tabletop Game Designers Association and how it can affect Latin America. So,
is that the one that Daryl went to last year?
Maybe. I don't remember which one he went to last year. It takes place in somewhere in Latin America, but it rotates. So, like this is like a very specific thing that has like 2 days of like Congress and like for the game designers, and then 2 days of like a convention that the public can go to. So it's one of those types of things. So yeah, cool. Excellent. Well, very good to talk to you, Kristen. Have you ever been to Unpub, Kristen? Like Unpub Prime?
No, I have not. I'd love to go there as well.
You should think about that one. That one. There you go. All right. Well, everybody, take a look at this game here. I'm going to show it again if I can before we go. And while we're doing that, you can find me at Senfeng Lim on Twitter and Blue Sky and places like that. Kat, where can people find you?
You can find us at Dreyer Inc. on all the things at the moment.
Maple Syrup on all the things. And Kristen is at...
Yeah, family.boardgaming on Instagram. I'm most active there, or you can find me on Facebook.
Yeah. And if you want to support what she's doing, you can check out this, which is the Tiny Games Series Volume 2 from Envy Worn Games, which contains Dragon Roost, Prowl, and Space Potato. And Kristen's game is Prowl, which is about tigers peeing on things, apparently. Right?
They're marking their territories if you want to make it sound,
PG?
Yeah.
I like the idea of marking territory by peeing on things. That makes sense to me, right? And then if you want to keep the lights on here, patreon.com/maple-syrup. And Kristen, do you have any final advice for people?
Ooh, I mean, game design is hard. And I think just showing up, I think that's like, show up as much as you can. Test your stuff. Don't give up. I know everybody says that. It's true.
Yeah, and give back to the community to help other people test too, right?
Oh, so, yeah.
Yeah, if you play test one game, you get somebody else to play test yours.
What'd you say?
Heels down. Heels down.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just
is that a horsey thing?
Yes, if you don't have your heels down, you can have your feet slip into the stirrups.
And that's a bad thing?
That's not a good
bad news.
Well,
if you fall off,
you can get drugged
and your foot's still in the stirrup.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be bad. Okay, so heels down. Okay, I get it.
Heels
down, everybody. Just do what they say. Excellent. Thanks for the chat tonight. You guys are great. We'll see everybody next week. See ya.